Hi everybody, this is Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel, and I want to address a little something. People have been asking me a lot about tattoo work, so I thought I'd give you a little history of my tattoo experience. Um, well, let's see. You know, when I was younger, before I went to prison, there were a lot of guys who were on parole from my neighborhoods, and there was, I grew up around biker type stuff, and so a lot of them had tattoos. I was really impressed by. A lot of them were getting out of the joint, and I was like, man, them tattoos are badass, Of course, I was a kid. I couldn't get no tattoos. But, my first tattoo thing was, I went to youth authority. So I went to youth authority. I was like, just turned 13 around there. And I got in there and guys are using toothbrush, and then they melt little, sometimes staples or needles in the end, sharpen them down. Then they'd wrap that needle they made with thread, and they dip that in the ink and tattoo with on each other with that. And guys are making ink out of ashes and all kinds of shit, and it was crazy. But I got my first tattoo there in Nellis, and it was the 13 on my hand there. A guy named Sleepy from Pomona 12th Street did that on me, and that was my first tattoo ever. I never forgot that, But there were guys there tattooing like they were getting full sleeves, chest pieces. I remember looking at a guy's, because they had a dorm with cells, Some guys had cells, and guys were tattooing on themselves in the cell. Hand plucking, they call that, plucking, hand plucking. So guys were doing like their whole, getting tattooed back like that. I was just like amazed, I used to draw a little bit, they had this spy versus spy character. We used to modify it into, like a lowrider cat, man. They call him the redneck killer, and it was a cool little tattoo pattern. And that's where I first got up on tattoo patterns too. They were kind of valuable to people, and I would draw them on envelopes and make little homemade cards and stuff. But I really didn't get into tattooing, I got a couple tattoos. I had some dice on my arm and a couple other things. Just simple shit, that I did myself. But later on, I got them covered up. But so there in Nellis, that's what was going on. It was hand plucking. Guys were just tattooing the shit out of each other like that, man. We're all young. I was a young kid, but there were guys there in their 20s that were getting tattooed, late teens, early 20s. And so from there, I went to OH Clothes and Paso Robles. I didn't really see a lot of tattooing there. I got out, and I screwed up, and I went to Preston. Early years, Nellis, all that. That's the main things that stand out to me, where guys were hand plucking their tattoo work, And so when I got to Preston, that's the first place I noticed guys had tattoo machines, So here I was 16, but I was on units, with guys that were in 20, 21, up to 25 years old. And they were using tattoo machines, I never really got to see, how they were made, until later on before I got out. But, there was one cat really, really impressed me was Louis. He was from San Fernando. I never really seen him do a lot of tattooing, but he was fully covered, and he was fully tattooed back. And there was this guy, Pete, from Richmond, from Cocoa County. His brother was in Tracy. But his legs were sleeved back. I mean, he had like a pantsuit, his legs were fully tattooed. And I didn't get to really see what the tattoos were. I remember dragging or so, I never got to really inspect his legs, but I remember seeing him around, when he's had shorts on the hallway or going to shower or whatever. I thought, man, them fucking legs look tough, That just really impressed me. And he was tattooing. He tattooed his own legs and all that stuff. But they wouldn't tattoo on me. They really didn't want to tattoo on me. I remember one time this guy was like, yeah, I'm going to tattoo this thing on Smiley. And the other guy's like, nah, man, he's just a kid, you know, and he'll regret it and all that kind of shit, you know. Um, excuse me. But, yeah, them guys didn't want a tattoo on me because I was too young, they thought, you know. So I decided I was going to learn how to tattoo myself. So collected a lot of patterns, and I'd redraw them. And then there was this Mexican cat right at the south side, or he had a tattoo machine. He was kind of about my age, a little bit older. I said, hey, man, let me borrow your tattoo machine, you know. And they had real ink there. I think they got it at a print shop or something. So, you know, I couldn't figure out how to make that tattoo machine work, you know. I tried batteries, you know, it worked, but the batteries ran out real quick. So I asked this guy, hey, man, can you plug them tattoo machines in the wall? And he goes, oh, yeah, sure, you know. So the cells don't have electricity there, but they had like an exposed light fixture on the ceiling. So we got these things you screw into that, and it has a plug on the side, then you screw your light bulb into that. So I got one of those, you know, and I thought, yeah, I'm cooking with gas now, right? And I extended the wires on the tattoo machine, you know, I got up there and plugged it into the socket. I put one wire in there, I hold the machine right, and I put the other wire in there, and just went poof, you know. So, you know, yeah, you can plug them in, but nobody told me, you know, that you had to have an adapter, you know, transformer to break down the current. So I told old boy, hey, man, I blew up your tattoo machine, you know. I told him what happened. He was like, oh, man, Holmes, you know. I said, I don't trip, man. I had a little tape player, you know, I had a single speaker, a little cassette with a radio, you know. And I said, I got a tape player, so I yanked the motor out of that, and we remade the machine, you know, and everything. And hey, man, I was just really green and naive about tattooing. I didn't really know what I was doing. But all I remember was the desire to learn was there. I wanted to learn how to tattoo. And so I started tattooing, you know, on myself and on my arm. And I ended up going to the hole. I went to the program side of the hole, you know, and there was this cat there named Rudy. He was from 155th. And man, he was a good dude, man. He would give me all his tattoo patterns, and I got these big sheets of paper, probably, you know, 2 foot by, I don't know, 1.5 feet, maybe a little bigger. I drew a warbird in the center of each one, you know. One of them I did a big giant warbird with 2 dragons on each side of it. And so I put a bird on each one, then I did patterns all around it. Like one I had all chicks, one had all skulls, one had all monsters and stuff, you know. And I had all them patterns, and I started tattooing on myself. That's where I got up on ditto paper and all that stuff to transfer the pattern to your arm, you know. And my last 30 days there, I was locked down, you know, over an incident. And so I got the tattoo equipment going, you know, and I was like, hey, man, give me this, give me that, you know. I made this machine, and but the thing is, I would do fucked up tattoos on this arm here, you know, and I would go down and show Rudy, though, hey, man, look at this, look at that, you know. Every time I come out for a shower, I'd stop by his cell and show him. He'd be like, yeah, Holmes, you're getting it, you know, you're getting it, you're figuring it out, man, you're getting good at that shit, you know. And I probably wasn't, but I was learning, you know. He didn't want to discourage me, so I paroled from there. You know, with 5 sheets of patterns and a bunch of loose patterns. I ended up losing them when I was out running amok, but I had that, you know. And then on the streets, I made a little tattoo machine. I tattooed a couple of my homeboys. Yeah, the work was like, you know, wasn't too great, wasn't too bad, but it wasn't great. And I remember later on in Donovan, this guy goes, man, you tattooed on me, man, before you got busted. This dude Red. He had a little devil I tattooed on him before I went to prison, you know. But the thing about tattooing is really, Preston was really where it stood out for me, you know, was Preston. I thought, man, and we were getting tattoo magazine or Easy Rider magazines, and they had a spread about this bike show they did in San Quentin, you know, and showed all these dudes posed up in the gym, all tattooed back at this bike show. I just thought, man, that is the shit, you know. So when I got out, I do remember I was going up and down San Diego downtown, right? They had a bunch of massage parlors and tattoo shops. Back then, it was pretty seedy area, you know. And I got the mutt here. Look at that. Yeah, I got the beast. So anyway, I went to all the tattoo shops, you know, and I showed them all my tattoo patterns. I go, man, I know how to tattoo, and so on and so forth. Of course, I never used a shop machine. But I went to like one shop, I'm standing there and this chick's in there telling the guy, hey, you forgot the color in my tattoo. And and so I thought, man, I could do that. That ain't shit. It was like a rainbow, a little unicorn head. I thought that is nothing. I could do that. But I told the guy, hey, man, I like a job. And he's like, hey, I showed him my patterns. He said, we don't do that kind of work here. We use color and this and that. I said, well, I can do color. It's no big deal. Anyone can do what them guys are doing. Nowadays they call it traditional tattoo work, but to me it's crappy tattoo work. Big fat lines and just a splotch of color here and there and kick them out the door. But people got to remember, like I saw on this show about tattooing, those guys are doing big old tattoos for 20, 30, 40 bucks a pop, so they were banging them out as fast as they could, Now people pay by the hour, so guys take their time, they do good work on them, and they come out with masterpieces. But anyways, I went to a couple other shops and like, nah, we can't take you and this and that, right? And once I got to tattooing in prison, I got pretty good at it. I told some guys that story about that, and I always thought, man, if one of them guys would have picked me up, I would have been tattooing out there in the world instead of heading off to prison, But that's just the way it ended up, right? So anyway, I did a little tattooing here and there, Of course, my ambition was bigger than my talent at the time, And so I ended up getting my case, right? And going off to prison. And I didn't really see, tattooing going on in county jail or reception center. When I was in a hole when I got to the Quentin, and in the hole they have tier tenders. Back then in the hole they had tier tenders. They had block workers, guys running the food up and down 5 tiers. Staff don't want to do that. So I was a tier tender for a while, and we had this cop, man. He would lock dudes in the cell with each other to tattoo on each other. It was kind of crazy, because back in them days, in the hole you could have radios, TVs, all kinds of stuff. So guys had tape players, and we were tattooing. So and we had a way to get ink and all that stuff. So this one dude was my neighbor, and he was a pretty good tattoo artist. And I got slid into his cell, and I did. He did this. I got Gollum right here, and he did some work on this arm. And but what he mainly did was my chest. You see this chick right here. He did this chick. It's kind of hard to see with the glare of that light. He did my chest. All right, it's all blasted. There's a wizard right here. And this is like a rock wall because I had a bunch of crap over here. They had to cover up, so you put like this chick's face blowing in. There's a window. Like right here, there's a window. Hair blowing through the window. Wizard holding a scroll, all that stuff. So he did that. And then this guy ended up stabbing some dude that was in his cell. So that was the end of the tattooing in the hole, Yeah, it was kind of stupid. Anyway, later on, I ran into the same cat at CMF, And at CMF, I started really tattooing. That's when I started getting the tattoo bug, And but this guy was tattooing, and I seen the bad side of the tattooing. He was a dope fiend, and when you're in the hole, you don't really see that because there's not a lot of dope in there. And guys are kind of themselves, But when they get out where there's drugs and all this other shit going on, they start acting stupid. So what he would do was he would get guys, kick him down some dope. He'd start work on them, do about half the shade and whatever, and leave a big outline. Then, it was all about, hey, kick him down some more dope and he'll finish the work, right? But he always leaves these dudes hanging, which was kind of bullshit to me. But so that was a bad, that's where I thought, what, this shit ain't cool, because I'm not down with the dope fiend shit, But he did a little work on my arm, I got some game from him. I was always impressed by his work, but never by him. He was kind of an asshole. You know, like I said, he was a dope fiend. He used to work dudes out of their money and their dope and leave them hanging. But I started tattooing, man. I had this friend Roger. He used to tattoo, and you know, Roger, he worked where he could get access to having stuff made, man. And he had a little brass brace made with a brass tube, you know, and he used to sterilize it in his hot pot and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Roger was a good influence, man. But you know, he would always tell me, "Oh, your work's great," you know, and all that. And I was tattooing a lot there. I started tattooing a lot, and I never tattooed for dope ever. I used to tattoo for money or canteen, and I had guys that would bring me, you know, $15, $20, canteen. Yeah, bottom line, I was learning. I mean, I was doing decent work on them, but I was learning. And then this friend of mine, he's out now, you know, he's in a bike club and all that stuff. But he's like, hey, you know, how about doing my back? And I thought, all right, you know, and so I did a rope, you know, around his patch, and then with an eagle on top. So I drew the eagle pattern out, put on there. I drew the rope on with a felt pen, and because this is the first big piece I really did, you know. And I remember sitting in the dorm, you know, and starting this tattoo, drawing it on there, and one of his club brothers like leaning over his shoulder, watching me, and all these guys. There's like 5 dudes in there, you know, they're hanging out, watching and that, and they all watch me, you know. And I was like, all right, you know, cool. And so I did that rope, and then he made me draw up each pattern, you know. So I would draw a pattern, you know, tie it together, and then, you know, he would like inspect the pattern, like, yeah, okay, and then, you know, he'd check it out when it was done, make sure it came out right, you know, and then, yeah, and then towards the end, he said I'd just freehand it, you know. So I would draw the pattern. I would just draw what I wanted to tattoo on the last piece that I did on him. I drew it on with a felt pen and then just tattooed it, you know. But that was, to me, that was really something, because he was a good dude, had a really good name, and I had a sense of pride and accomplishment with that tattoo, you know, doing this back piece. And yeah, it was cool, and we're still friends to this day. He's out, I'm out. But you know, tattoo experience in there. I didn't just tattoo on guys because they had money either, you know. Like, if you work in a shop, you know, you're gonna tattoo on people that walk in that door. But unless you find a reason why you don't want to, and you could slough them off down the road. But in there, I could be like, hey, you know, I don't like this dude. I don't care how much money he's got. I'm not tattooing on him. And I never accepted drugs for tattooing, you know. And like the case of my friend, I did his back. You know, I didn't charge him, but, you know, he looked out for me, you know. So, but most guys I tattooed on, I made them pay, you know. And like I said in the beginning, it was just canteen here and there, you know. And then later on, you know, I ended up via San Quentin. I ended up in New Folsom. Didn't do a lot of tattooing in them places. In New Folsom, there was not a whole lot of shit going on there for me. I was only there like 6-7 months, so it was like, you know, I wasn't having it. It's too secure. You know, they search your cells all the time, and it's like, you know what, I'm cool. But when I transferred to Tracy, that was a whole nother story, you know. Tracy was an old school pen. I could get real ink. There was a lot of movement, a lot of stuff going on. So, you know, back in the day, you know, guys used to make their machines, and like your little motors. I like bigger motors because they got torque. You know, you can punch that ink into the skin. A lot of guys would use these little small motors, and they would just, I call them scratchers. You know, they scratch the skin, you know, just, they don't drive it into the skin. So I like bigger motors. And the thing is, you have a post that comes off your motor, right? And then there's a little plastic wheel that comes with it, usually when you yank it out of your cassette player or whatever. So guys would poke a hole in that plastic and then run a little L shape. Their needle would come down and then bend into that plastic hole, and that hole in that plastic, you know. And then, but the problem with that is the hole starts off one size, and as you start tattooing, that needle in there starts bouncing around. And what I found was, you know, you go to put the needle in the skin, and it won't go in because it's just vibrating in that hole, you know. It won't. There's slop in it, you know. So what I did was I would have the machine shop guy make a wheel, put a little hole in there, offset hole, and then I'd run my needle, and sure enough, I got a more solid punch. But the problem then was where I bent the needle. One time I was tattooing on the Southsider cat, man, and I'm like, bzzz, and a bing, the where I bent it, it broke. So I was like, fuck, That happened a couple times, so I thought, I got to figure this shit out. So what I ended up doing was I went back to my machinist pal and I said, hey, make a little brass wheel, went over the center post, do the offset thing, but instead of putting a hole and bending the needle, I've had him put another post there. It was real hard metal, like off the binder clips. I'd cut that metal and put it in there. And he'd press that in there, then I'd wrap my needle around there and go down, which is kind of what we have now, with the, I don't have any needles out right now, but what you have is just a little eyelet, and that's how I set my motors up all the time after that. And I don't care if I had to get like JB Weld or whatever, I would always run an offset post and wrap the needle around that, always. It gave me a nice solid punch. So when I ran a line, I didn't have blowouts. You see guys with prison tattoos would be a line with the splotchy ink. That's from that needle slopping around. It's not consistent. So the way I set my machine up, it was consistent. I could run a line. I could run my shading. And one thing I do want to emphasize too is when I was in the hole, before I got out of the hole, I used to draw a lot, and I used to draw in pencil. And my neighbor, that guy that tattooed, he told me, man, screw that, draw in pen. And there's the savage, the beast, Chewy. Anyway, I would outline my stuff with a felt tip pen, real fine. And then I would shade it with pen fillers, which you see a lot of prison arts done with ballpoint pen. So what that does, and I would take the pen filler and wrap it in paper, tape it, and just shade with that. So what that does is that gets your hand used to certain, because you can make it dark by going heavier or lighter or whatever. And so I got my shading down from practicing in pen basically throughout the years. And one thing I also started doing was, I thought if I'm going to be a tattoo artist, I need to fucking become an artist. So I started drawing my own patterns. A lot of guys like artists like Frank Frazetta and stuff like that. So I would redraw a lot of his stuff and put it in the skin. And but then I started doing my own stuff, and people liked it. And so I tattooed quite a few guys there in Tracy. Let's see. We have this guy here. This is a tattoo pattern I did back in the day. This is Timer from Orange County. And then, let's see, put that there. And then this right here I did when I was in Tracy. This is Joe. He's passed on. I did his chest, his arms, and his back. His chest had a few items on there, and I just worked around them. And then, I believe this is Rolo. My friend Rolo, he's a South Sider from Orange County. That's Cindy Crawford I put on his arm. And then this is a piece that I did, several pieces here. A Damien, friend of mine. There's Damien when he paroled. You can see a little bit of his arm there. I don't know how well it focuses. But there's Damien. I did his chest. I did a little bit of work on his arm, kind of filling in, but I did his neck and his chest, which I really like. Here's a better photograph of his chest. And it says, I owe you nothing, FOAD. I'll leave that to your imagination. But when I was in Tracy, I tattooed quite a few people. I mean, I got to where I had real ink, and I was tattooing all the time. And what I started doing was, okay, you move in my cell, send the money to my books, I tattoo you. Now the prices were $100 a sleeve, $100 a chest, $200 a back, $200 a leg. That was the going rate, right? And That was my standard fee, you know. And so I would move a guy in, get paid, do his tattoo work. And then when I had the next guy lined up, this guy's done, they would switch cells. And then I'd do him. Then they'd switch cells to the next guy. So that's what I did. So I went through a lot of cellies, which, you know, if you talk to people that have been to prison, they'll tell you, man, hey, if you like somebody, don't sell up with them. So a lot of these guys I liked, and it was cool having them for cellies for 2-3 months, and then another guy for 2-3 months, because we never lived long enough to get burned out on each other and start, you know, disliking each other. And that's kind of cool. But that's how I kept my tattooing business going in prison, right? And but I always had, 3 or 4 guys on the yard fully blasted or more. And but at Tracy, I had this friend Chester. He's a tattoo artist, you know, and he was really good. And you know, I really liked him. We liked each other, and we used to talk a lot about tattooing and this and that. And you know, normally guys smack talk each other's tattoos, but he did really good work. I was always really impressed by his work, and I was impressed by the fact that he liked my work, you know. And he's out in the world now tattooing on the side here and there. But there was this one guy, he had escaped from Tracy. His name was Lion King. And you know, they busted and brought him back. But while he was on the run, you know, he was an old school tattooer, you know, from the late 70s, early 80s. And so he was on the run. And, you know, them cops read tattoo magazines. So this one cop, I guess, would read the tattoo magazine, and they have the conventions in there and all, and then there's Lion. And then next month, hey, there he is again. So they noticed that that he was going to all the tattoo conventions. So the next tattoo convention coming up was in New Orleans. So they went down there, and they, sure enough, you know, there he was, you know, in the magazines tattooing. But there he was at New Orleans tattoo convention. They busted him and brought him back to the prison, you know. So that's when I met him. And I used to walk the track with him quite a bit, you know, and ask him a lot of questions about tattooing. You know, he was an old school tattooer, you know, and he told me stories, man, about guys that would have a tattoo machine set up, you know, and they'd do a tattoo, you know, and then they'd put it in a drawer. They'd spray it with Lysol or something and throw it in a drawer. And then next guy come in for a tattoo, they see all the stuff laid out, right? But then they'd, on the sly, you know, pull that machine out and do the next guy, and then put it away and do the next guy. They'd do 4, 5, 6 tattoos with the same fucking machine, just spray it down with Lysol. I mean, that's old school shit, you know. That's some of the stuff he told me was going on in the street. And you know, he told me, you know, tattoo wars, you know, one tattoo shop would hire some dope fiend to go down to the next guy's tattoo shop and steal his autoclave and, you know, sterilizer. And they'd call, hey, this guy don't have a sterilizer, you know. Just dirty shit going on. But he also told me a lot of good information. I used to ask him a lot of questions about how to set up needles and color and this and that, you know. And like he had a tattoo on his leg, around his ankle, it was blue. But from where his sock was down, because you wear shorts on the yard and you get suntan and everything, it looked green. He goes, look at this tattoo, you know, and it was green. Pulled his sock down, it was blue. And, you know, that's where I started learning about color and stuff. And he says, you know, the sun turns your skin like a tan color, and that tan color mixed with the blue, it turns it green. So, you know, that's a lesson I learned about tattoos and the sun. You know, the sun's really bad for your skin and your tattoos and whatnot. But Lion was a good dude. He gave me a lot of information, and I really appreciated my time I spent with him. And then from there, I went down to Donovan, you know. And I tattooed on this guy, Todd. I told you about. He was my cell. He was a pretty good dude. You know, I blasted Todd out. And here's a couple pictures of Todd's tattoo work. All right. Let me see that up close. You can see the elephant there in his side. Here's his other arm. He had some work on him already, but not a whole lot. I ended up doing quite a bit of tattoo work on him. You know, they call him Stomper. But there's his elephants on his side. You know, so I tattooed. He was the first guy I tattooed there, and I remember seeing him on the yard, and I'm like, hey, man, you know, your cellie's leaving. He goes, yeah. I says, you know, I need a cell. You know, I'm living over here with some Willie Lump, you know. And And he says, okay, you know. And I said, you want some tattoo work? And he says, yeah. And I said, you got some money? He goes, well, you know, he kind of plexed up, how much money you want? You know, I said, don't trip. You got a little cash? He goes, yeah. So he was one of them dudes I lived with. I tattooed him down. We lived together for about a year and a half. And you know, it was just like he would contribute to the cell, you know, food, you know, Copenhagen, whatever, weed, you know. It was a selly thing. You know, I really liked him. I come to really like him, so I didn't outright charge him. And that's, you know, but I was still, he understood, hey, I'm tattooing on him, so he would contribute to the cell. Both of us contribute, but because he's getting tattoo work, he would contribute even more. So anyway, that was Todd, and then I tattooed Matt, you know, who some of you guys have seen on the show in the past. It's kind of a hanky shot there, but that's Matt. This is JD. I believe he's from Orange County. I did his chest. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see there. And Daryl, I did his chest. You know, that demon thing there, that's a cover-up. That's one thing, too, about prison tattooing, man, is people really like to get shit covered up. And I got to where I was pretty good at it, but, man, I hated doing it. What I really like is clean skin to work on, you know. And, you know, tattooing there in Donovan, man, I got staff knew I was tattooing, but I did the same thing. You know, I just tattooed on my cellies, man, and they see you do good work, and they usually don't mess with it, you know. And then this is a homeboy of mine. Stomach, I did his stomach and his chest. That's one side of his chest. A lot of these guys would get out, you know, and they would send, there's the other side of his stomach, right? They would send photographs in. That's all I would ask a lot of them to do. Like Chris right there, I tattooed him down, a little bit his chest, his stomach. I said, hey, you know, I think he gave me a TV and a radio when he paroled, and I said, just send me some pictures, you know. So they would go to the tattoo shop I had a homeboy working at, and they get photographs taken and then send them in. So I could have photographs of my work, you know. Because by then, you know, that we still had a camera on the yard, but it's always best to get photos taken on the street. But, you know, I had a bunch of ink there. I had access to real ink. I could get quarts of ink. And what always tripped me out, man, at Donovan, you know, they had other guys tattooing, but they would always come to me and ask me for ink because it seemed like I had an endless supply of ink. When you buy it by the quart, you do, you know. And they couldn't figure out how to get it, and it's a pretty simple solution, you know. Getting ink was no big secret. But I would sell them whiteout bottles, which is like 4/5 of an ounce or whatever for a jar of coffee. So, you know, selling bottles of ink kept me in coffee, you know. And then there was this one Southsider cat there from Wheatmoss, Chewy. He was a good tattoo artist, you know. But he'd be like, yeah, Holmes, you know, you can't tattoo hyenas, you know. And I'd be like, yeah, well, you know, you can't do this, or we'd laugh and shit talk each other a little bit. But you know, we respected each other's tattoo work, man. He was a really awesome tattoo guy, and I remember he said that, you know, you can't do hyenas, you know. And I went and tattooed a chick on this dude, you know, and showed him, yeah, how's that, you know. And there was this one cat there, Johnny. They call him Johnny Cat. And he always wanted a tattoo. And one day I said, hey, man, I'm going to come in your cell during the lunchtime, you know, lockup. They lock you up for lunch. They could run a hot lunch back then. It's only like an hour and a half. And I had this turtle pattern. And I went in the cell with all my shit, and I stuck this turtle pattern on his stomach. I did his whole stomach, a big sea turtle, you know, swimming up. And it took me about an hour and 15 minutes. And he was just like, wow, you know. And I remember years later, this guy goes, hey, Turtle said to tell you hi, I heard you were here. And I go, I don't know nobody named Turtle. He goes, yeah, you know, Johnny. So he changed his name from Johnny Cat to Turtle because of that tattoo. That guy loved that tattoo, man. And he was just happy as hell to have it, you know. He was a cool cat. But, you know, tattooing in Donovan was fun. I did tattoo this cat up. Here's his leg. And his name was Chops. I did both his legs fully blasted. There's another leg shot. And I did his shoulders, across his back. There's another leg, piece of his leg. Of course, he took these photographs when he got out at the tattoo shop. That's another piece of his leg shot. You know, and there's another piece of his leg that I did. You know, and there's another piece of his leg that I did. I fully tattooed his legs and a little bit of his chest and his upper back, you know, and suited him up pretty good, you know. And then unfortunately, he's from PB. When he got out of prison, he took it a hot shot and he died. He liked to shoot that dope, man, and it killed him. So it's very unfortunate. Yeah, so my tattoo experience there in Donovan was that was it. And then from there, I went on to Corcoran, and we'll get into that next time. Thank you very much, people. I do want to say you can check out our website, hardintentions.com. We got T-shirts, and we got artwork and stuff for you guys to buy, prints. We're working on hats still. I think I have a solution. I did talk to a guy from the Metal Militia, Larry. Hats off to you, Larry. You're a man. They're great people. I love the militia. I just want to thank all our Patreon subscribers. We got a B Bear, and we got Dan McCoy, Dan Mack, and Jason Menity. Now, here's the deal. Jason thinks that Dan Mack might be related to him somehow, through his dad somehow. So I don't know if we could hook you guys up and figure out if you guys are related or not. But you know what? Jason got our Brainiac painting, and Dan's an awesome donator through Patreon. I just want to thank you guys for your support. And we have Jason, we have Saul Jacobson, John Hall, Marcus Miller. Thank you for dinner, brother, for a wedding dinner. Perfidious?
Yeah.
Britt, thank you. Robert Lara, Russell Duvall, Shelton Swimmer. He's got a badass race car. Steve Megan, and donated through Patreon. It really means a lot to us. And people who go to our website and buy our T-shirts and my prints of my art. Rebecca, I believe, bought our painting, an original piece. That really means a lot. You know, like I said before, it's a validation of a dream I had. It's coming to fruition. We really appreciate everything you do. And we'll have part 2 of this coming up soon. Thank you all very much. Take care of yourselves and be safe out there in the world. Take your safety hard.